Shalom. This is Ask the Rabbi series, number 6. Most of the questions this week actually had to do with views of Judaism or my views of other religions. For example, a fellow from Bahai said that he detected that when I was doing my video on Bahai and Judaism, I had a slight insinuation that Judaism I thought was superior and I should be objective. Well, how in the world can I be objective? My whole life is teaching Judaism and Torah. And of course I think Judaism is the way that the world should be. I believe that Zechariah the prophet, when he said, Bayom ahu yeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad, in that day all the people will know Adonai and be in Jerusalem and worship the way in which we understand it. And that is the view of the Messianic era. However, in this lifetime, Judaism firmly believes that if people have a different religious tradition and they follow the 7 laws of the sons of Noah, as I explained in another video, they perfectly can do that. There's no reason everybody has to be Jewish. But to pretend I'm objective, I'm not. I clearly believe that Judaism is the right way. I'm sure somebody who's Bahai believes their way and Christians believe their way, but I'm not objective. I don't pretend to be objective. My view is trying to explain Judaism to the world. Then I had a fellow, I don't know if to laugh or cry about this or be happy. This fellow writes me what an inspiration my videos are, and he's a cantor in a Messianic synagogue. And then he wants to know why I think it's treasonous for a Jew to believe that Jesus is God. Well, it is. If you want to be Christian and believe Jesus is God or the Son of God or whatever, be Christian. But to say you're Jewish and believe that is completely outside the boundaries of Judaism. Now, somebody else then asked me, but Jews, even if they sin, are still considered Jews. So how can you, once a Jew, always a Jew, is a basic principle? Well, Jews were excommunicated at various times in Jewish history for various beliefs by other Jews. For example, the Vilna Gaon excommunicated the first Lubavitcher rabbi, and they excommunicated back. In any case, the Jewish people have decided that today, because of the confusion and the challenges of assimilation, and this is not just today, it's an old idea, that if you believe that a human being is God, especially Jesus, you're not Jewish. The Supreme Court of Israel had a case where a fellow who was born as a Jew, became a monk, appeared in monk's clothing before the Supreme Court, and wanted to be admitted under the law of return as a Jew. The Supreme Court of Israel said no. And that is the belief of the Jewish people today. Then somebody asked me about Orthodoxy. They took offense to some of my comments about Orthodoxy. Now here's my view, and I've explained this in other videos, and I'm just one rabbi with one view. I had an Orthodox education most of my early years, and there's some beautiful things about Orthodoxy, but there's some deeply troubling things, and why I could never be Orthodox. He was insulted by some of my comments. Okay, well, I'm trying to speak the truth as I see it. I'm sure he has a different view. He can say whatever he wants. Basically, Orthodoxy is founded on a misconception about the Torah. They believe that every word of the Torah came from God to Moses at Sinai. It's simply untrue. There are thousands of examples. Easy to prove. We've known this for a couple hundred years. It's shared widely by all Jewish scholars outside of Orthodoxy and the whole Christian world outside of fundamentalism. Fundamentalist Christians and fundamentalist Jews share the same misconception, we believe, about their Bibles, that, in the case of Orthodoxy, our Bible, that it's a unified Mosaic document. And New Testament believes, some of them, some Christians, that that's their issue, that the whole thing was exactly the way it's written down in the New Testament. So that's one problem. Secondly, I think if you step back and you say women can't lead services, how clearly discriminatory that is. I mean, women couldn't vote or hold property in Western democracies for a long time too. Orthodoxy can live with that, fine. But to say that that's something I think most Jews today can't live with, the discrimination against women in Jewish ritual. But again, there is a lot of wonderful, beautiful things. I think Orthodoxy is going to win in the demography and marketplace of ideas because of how they're able to retain their own and the significant birth rate. And there's a lot of wonderful things there. I just don't agree with everything. Sorry if the fellow took offense. Listen, I get a lot of criticism from anti-Semites too. Basically, anybody who's not thinking exactly the way I do, they have their own views. Okay, that's the way the world is. That's why we have intellectual discussion and debate. Now, this fellow writing also thought I was being mean and we should just all get along and all say everything's fine about everybody. Well, the main problem in Judaism today is the hostility of Orthodoxy to the rest of Judaism. when the Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel can say that Reform and conservative wafts of hell, and no Orthodox authorities condemn that, well, that's a big problem. And Orthodoxy should work hard. And Orthodox rabbis don't accept our conversions and don't accept our witnessing, and they don't think we're a legitimate form of Judaism, a lot of them. Well, that's a big problem. Then a fella from Japan thinking of converting wanted to know, because he's Asian, would Jews accept him? I wrote back and said, Jews absolutely do not have a race. Jews have every kind of face you can imagine. We live in every part of the world, although not that many Jews around anymore because of all the killing of Jews. But certainly anybody who wants to be Jewish can be Jewish if they properly convert. It's nothing about race. We're not a race in any way. Then a fellow wants to know why Judaism needs to exist since Christianity came and perfected it, kind of what Ann Coulter said, and you can watch my video about that. And in the Old Testament it's contained, leads into the New Testament. I said, no, in the Jewish view, Christianity came along 2,000 years after Judaism existed and changed direction. Now, they kept some good things. They kept the Messiah. They kept the idea of God. They kept the Sabbath. They kept the Ten Commandments. But they radically changed it by saying that a human being could be God, and that by having what they call a new Bible. We don't believe in a new Bible. Certainly, Jews do not need to be perfected. We believe we're fine the way we are. We have our own covenant with God. I think we have the original covenant and the only covenant, but if other people want to have their own religious beliefs, again, and follow the laws of the 7 laws of Noah, that's great. Then somebody wanted to know how a Jew can be Jewish and not believe in God. In most other religious traditions, if you lose your faith, you're out of that religion. Well, the answer is that Jews are not a religion, never have been a religion. There's no word for religion, really, in Judaism that's old. There's a modern word for it, but the Bible calls us an Am, which is a nation, a Mamlechet Kohanim, a nation of priests, a Goy, one of the Goyim of the world, B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel, B'nai Britecha, the children of the covenant. We're never called a religion. And so there's a wide variety of beliefs. If you choose to be Jewish or you're born to a Jewish mother, you're Jewish. And if you unfortunately don't believe in God, well, you're still Jewish. Part of the Jewish people, ethnically Jewish, just are not following the traditional beliefs and traditions of Judaism. Then somebody wanted to know how God can be so cruel as to kill the firstborn sons in the plagues. And I have many answers to that. One of them is that, first of all, I don't believe the plagues occurred in 2 weeks, or however long the Bible suggests the time period was. If you read the Egyptian newspapers over 100 years, you'll see that all those plagues occur. Locusts and sandstorms, and people die, certainly in old times, of bad food. And hundreds of years later, when the story was written down, our people understood it as God's strength to get the Jews out of Egypt. Now, the Orthodox certainly wouldn't agree with that interpretation, but that's really what happened. Second of all, is it possible that a certain segment of the Egyptian population would die first, and that would go down in history? Well, absolutely. Who got the best food? The firstborn kid, probably. And if that food was tainted, that kid would probably die. But in any case, it might not have been the firstborn. It might have been a significant segment of the Egyptian population. And again, as the story was oral for hundreds and hundreds of years before it got written down, who knows how the story was transformed. And it wasn't just the firstborn. The whole army died in the Red Sea, according to the story. And the Jewish people are sad about that other people had to suffer so we could be free. And so we take a drop of wine out of our wine cup during the Passover story of telling to reflect that. But finally, we know in history that innocent people suffer when the government is tyrannical and oppressive. Think about President Truman's decision to drop the atomic bomb on Japan to try and save 1 million American lives who probably would have been lost in invading Japan to stop the war. Sometimes, sadly, those moral decisions have to be made. And God gave, and if you take the story literally, God gave Egypt every chance, Pharaoh every chance to let the Jews go without any suffering, and he refused to do that. So finally, the Jewish people had to be free. And sadly, people had to suffer. So those are my answers to the very interesting and serious questions we got this week, and Ask the Rabbi.